Hey guys, I'm Allie, and I recently sat for my PMP exam and scored above target on all 5 domains. I wanted to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I found helpful, as well as just my experience. When I was searching YouTube, I could not find any helpful videos, so hopefully this will be one. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you know a little bit about the PMP certification, and that's why you clicked on this video. So PMI states that in order to earn your PMP credential, you need to meet the education and the experience requirements. Then, if you meet those requirements, you have to take a 200-question, 4-hour exam. With all of that being said, here are some tips and tricks that I found helpful in passing on my first try, as well as some of my experience. Let's get into the video. So I am doing a 30-day to PMP study plan because I'm lazy and only have 30 days until my PMP exam. If you were to ask me hypothetically, I would say I would trade a few weekends of fun to pass this exam. It's a lot harder now that I'm trading in those weekends for study time, but I know that I'll be frustrated with myself if I fail because I wanted to go hike or do something like that. So put in the work and we'll see where it gets me. Day 30 and day 29 are in the books. I feel like I learned a lot, but not nearly enough. So tip number 1, build a study plan and stick to it. I am an example that you can be prepared for the PMP in just a month. I had 30 days from the time I opened the textbook or any material for the very first time to the day that I sat for the exam. Personally, I studied 3 to 4 hours every single night from around 5 to 10, somewhere in that range. That was my schedule and I wasn't going to let up. If anything conflicted with that time, it had to go. I don't recommend waiting to the very last minute. I recommend studying 3 or 4 months ahead. But if you only have 30 days like I did, then just know it's possible. Build a plan and stick to it. 26 days left till the PMP. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm riding the wave. I'm feeling really motivated. Yesterday I got on Instagram and asked my friends some tips and tricks on staying sharp and motivated. Some of those came back like watch a motivational video or read a book to relax, which I do think are great things to do just day to day to stay sharp as a person. But I'm obviously on a time crunch, on a tight schedule, and what I'm studying for requires a lot of focus and intensive concentration. So working 9 hours a day, then shifting gears to dedicate that kind of concentration can be challenging. So I was looking for things that would keep me mentally sharp and focused through that long process and with a transition like that. And I realized when I was reading through the responses that I was spending an hour reading through these, and that was an hour that I could have been studying. And while everyone needs a study break, I just had this moment of, Allie, you have to starve your distractions and feed your focus. So that's what I'm doing. I'm off Instagram officially for 4 weeks and hitting the books. Tip number 2, you're gonna have to say no to distractions. For me, this meant deleting Instagram so I wasn't mindlessly scrolling and saying no to ski trips and wine tasting. For you, this might look different, but just know that the cost of waiting this long is saying no to things that interfere with your schedule. Now, don't think too negatively about this, or you might begin to resent studying and then retaining any information at all is hard. But instead, just frame this in a positive light. I mean, think about it. You're putting in the work, maybe late, but you're putting in the work that a lot of people aren't. So just say no to distraction. Okay, so there are 25 days to my PMP exam, and just saying that sounds absurd. I'm using a few resources to study, one of which is Andy Crow's book that helps digest the PMBOK. The other is the PMBOK itself, and then I'm also using the PrepCast simulator, which allows me to use learning mode or test mode to answer questions and get a real feel for the exam and what those questions look like, as well as flag them for review, and then it has a really good detailed explanation of why the answer is wrong and or why the correct answer is the right choice. So this is what I have passed, and this is what I still have to go. Tip 3, choose the right study materials. This is huge and might change depending on how much time you have to study. I didn't go through any prep courses, but I did use a few tools. one of which being Andy Crow's How to Pass the PMP Exam on Your First Try, and also PrepCast Exam Simulator. These were the two tools that I found most useful, and I read a chapter a day for the first 2 weeks, and then the last 2 weeks I answered questions on the exam simulator in both learning mode and in the timed mode, which simulates the real exam. For me, I found this really helpful because it was a first pass at the knowledge and then reiterating on the knowledge that I had crammed into my brain. I also used Quizlet for flashcards, and I used a couple YouTube videos, with the most important being Vargas's Process Flow from the 6th edition. I personally do have a copy of the PMBOK, but I didn't open it. I used a lot of other tools, all of which I will link down below. Me again, just stopping in at 18 days left to say that my brain hurts. I've been just writing and repeating and repeating, and it's still, I'm not close. So tip number 4, what should you memorize and what shouldn't you? Personally, I memorized the 49 processes in the 6th edition of the PMBOK, what they are and what order they happen in. This was really helpful for me as I used it as a brain dump during the beginning of the exam. Now, I didn't use this brain dump a ton, but it felt good to know that I had the right answers right there in front of me. I did not bother memorizing the inputs, tools and techniques, or outputs. I also didn't memorize the formulas, and for me, I personally didn't feel the need to memorize these things as all of the questions provided all of the pieces that I needed to deduct the right answer. I just scored my first 100, first time through a chapter, and it feels so good. I was feeling pretty down this morning when I started. Saturdays are just long study days, so to be at the 6:30 mark and have made it through multiple chapters today and score 100 on one of them has me feeling pretty good. Tip number 5, set small goals inside of your really big goal. For me, this was a way to gamify the studying process. It was, if you do this, then you can do that. It might look different for you, I don't know. Setting small goals inside of my big goal made the study process feel more achievable, and early in the process, it made the big goal at the end and not seem so far away. Can you say hot mess? It is 7:14 and I'm an hour and a half through my 3rd exam on the PrepCast simulator, and I'm taking my 15-minute break. I've got some water. I'm trying to get in the habit of how I will take the test. Guys, I'm like 8 days away, but that really means I'll be taking my exam in 8 days, which means I only have a week left of studying, which means really Tip number 6, create habits. This one is huge. Get yourself in the mindset that you're going to be studying, and this way it makes it a little bit easier for your brain to go there and say, okay, this is information that I need to retain. And when you don't feel like studying, the habits you've created can become very useful to just grinding it out and telling your mind, I know you don't feel like it right now, but it's time to study.
I think that I can pass the exam with the knowledge that I have now, but I need to work on my weak spots, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good.
Lastly, tip number 7, and that is to visualize, visualize, visualize. Listen, there is so much power in visualization. I visualized myself calm and ready and prepared in the exam room. Every single question that I read, I visualized myself in that scenario. Now, ultimately, the questions will tend to give you a lot of information that you don't really need to answer the question. So visualize what the actual question is asking and get rid of the rest. Visualize yourself passing. Visualize yourself feeling calm. Visualize yourself on exam day knocking it out of the park. You're gonna have doubts. You're gonna get frustrated. I know that I sure did. But let those feelings come, push them aside. You gotta keep going. The most important thing is 30 days later, I passed. That's the goal. These 7 tips and tricks are what helped me pass my PMP exam on the first time and in 30 days. If you're watching this and you've got some time, don't be lazy, don't procrastinate, please start studying. 2 to 3 months ahead at a minimum. But ultimately, if here you are 3 to 4 weeks before your exam, don't stress, you can do this. I hope you liked this video, and leave some more helpful tips and tricks in the comments below. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.